Hello, it's Make It Make Sense. I'm your host, Alex Kienlen. I'm here today with friend and coworker, Paige Riley. Paige, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, I'm really glad to have you today because this all started from a topic in the newsroom, and you and I were having a chat.
Yeah.
And you made the following statement that the college playoff system is a mess.
It is. It is a literal mess. I really think the whole state of college football is a mess. I love it. It's a mess that I love, but honestly, it's such a disaster right now. There's just no rules, really. There's no regulation. There's nobody really overseeing the whole thing, that it's just created absolute chaos.
So starting with that then, you said, so we'll start with the playoff system. We can talk about that. And I'll Notre Dame, and then we can go.
Yeah.
Then we can go from there, and because I don't think we can talk about what a mess the college system is without going into NIL.
Yeah, and the transfer portal.
Oh, let me write that down.
The transfer portal, NIL, and Alex and I, we've talked about solutions to this. Mm-hmm. Alex and I, we've tried to talk about it like in the office, and he's like, "Whoa!" He's like, "Wait, we got to keep it fresh and ready to go for Make It Make Sense."
I did that. We were starting to have a conversation about this, and Paige was bringing up different things. I said, okay, let's hold off. Let's have the whole conversation on air so other people can join us in this conversation. By the way, if you want to comment on this conversation or any other conversation, make it make sense at nextstar.tv. Your email will be read. And, Paige, let's start with the championship playoffs. And why don't you tell me what's going on there?
Yeah, so right now what we have this week is going to be the first week of the playoffs. It starts on Friday. Everything will be concluded on Saturday, but a week before was Selection Sunday. And a huge debate was, do you punish a conference champion? Mm-hmm. That is the biggest thing, a conference champion or somebody who has lose their conference championship game. Because these conference championship games, they bring in millions of dollars a year for college football playoff between the sponsorships. Like, for example, the SEC with Dr. Pepper, that's their huge sponsor for that event. Then also if you're playing at Mercedes-Benz Stadium for the SEC championship, and then wherever the Big Ten plays and then the ACC plays. Then also you got to think of like ticket sales as well. Then also the conferences and the schools themselves, they make more money if they make the conference championship game. And that's huge nowadays in revenue sharing. So going into this game, it was a huge debate of whether or not a 3-loss team that made their conference championship should make it to the playoffs. That was the huge debate. This year it was Alabama. Last year the debate was, do you punish SMU for losing your conference championship but having to go into the playoff rankings? What do you do with that whole situation? And so the precedent that got set last year was that if you lose your conference championship game, you cannot be punished for that. And it's because they know that all these commissioners will be afraid to have their conference games, and they know that everyone will lose out on millions of dollars. Nobody will talk about the money piece, though. That's the thing. Everyone's going to be like, oh, no, just the pride of playing for your conference championship or whatever. No, it's really because they're all afraid that we're going to lose millions of dollars if we don't play these.
So that's what you're telling me. There's the public conversation, and then we'll call it the real conversation.
Yeah, that's the big thing. So,
and with that said, I understand the selection process for the upcoming conference championships has been, we have some people that have a bye. We have some people that were selected, some people that were not selected. Is this where I get to talk about Notre Dame?
Yes.
Okay.
So the whole thing that happened with Notre Dame, and honestly, it's so crazy. I would have to say when Selection Sunday happened, even though Texas and Vanderbilt were the first 2 teams that were out, truly the SEC won. They really won. They had 5 teams in, and they're going to make $20 million off of that first round because each school makes $4 million for even making it into the playoffs. And then depending on the bowl games that you play in and all of that, really everything, the crux of everything, Alex, just comes down to money. And I know we always talk about money and NIL and everything. But so a lot of Notre Dame fans feel as if they got snubbed and that they should have been in over Alabama because Alabama is technically a 3-loss team and they were only a 2-loss team. Also, there was a whole issue of every single ranking until the official ranking of when it actually mattered, when the brackets were actually set, they were in the playoff rankings. And so it almost, and the athletic director, Notre Dame's athletic director, had called all of these rankings previous. He called it a farce and had said it's ridiculous that you had us completely in, and then when the time mattered, you then decided to change your mind and knock us out. Honestly, truly, the committee messed up, Alex, and they should have taken the head-to-head matchup between Notre Dame and Miami way more serious. Because a lot of the qualifications that go into this, it's like strength of resume, strength of record, strength of schedule, your FPI ranking, which is like your power ranking of like how strong of a team you really are. And that takes like the eye test into consideration and all of those things. They also take like if a coach leaves, if key players are injured, they take all of that into consideration. Notre Dame and Miami, they were all separated by 1. So like strength of schedule, Notre Dame was 43, Miami was 44. And so when you have a team that is so close like that, you just have to go down to the head-to-head matchup. Miami beat Notre Dame in week 2. But for weeks, they had Notre Dame ranked above Miami. And it's because Miami was undefeated, they were doing great, and then mid-season, they had some serious slip-ups against unranked teams that they should not have lost to. So why the College Football Committee decided to make the decision when the playoff rankings actually mattered and the bracket would be set, why they then decided to make that flip is beyond me. And people went nuts and went crazy on Hunter Yurachek for it.
Well, let me ask you about this because I understood you said it was Notre Dame, Alabama was the choice. But I'd heard something to the effect, or read something to the effect, and I really did do some research on this, that there was talk that Miami, the reason Miami was selected over Notre Dame was because Miami has more money.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
And it has to do with a lot with appearances. And of course, with that said, there's been some rule tweaks because of this, hasn't there? Because Notre Dame signed a memo.
Oh my gosh, that was crazy. I have never heard of this. And this is like real chaos. So Notre Dame signed something, their athletic director, just after the whole thing, it was like, if we are ranked in the top 12, we automatically next year get a bid into the playoff and you can't kick us out.
Right.
Which I think is crazy. And so many people were joking and they were like, just rank them 13th for the rest of the season. They were like to really like tick them off.
Right.
But yeah, so that was, I also too, I think that if Miami didn't get in, the ACC would be like the first time that the ACC in forever wouldn't have an appearance in the playoffs, and then that conference would lose millions of dollars. I mean, the ACC was just a mess throughout the entire season with the crazy upsets, and they don't have as strong of a schedule or as strong of teams as the SEC and the Big Ten do, but that was just watching. Nobody really knew for that conference until like the week before who is going to be playing in the conference championship because everybody was upsetting each other and the rankings were so weird. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they also too took into consideration, okay, if the ACC is not in this, like they're going to lose out on money on the whole thing. Because
isn't it? So in other words, Notre Dame signed an agreement. I understand it was a memo of understanding, memorandum of understanding being the legal term. And but no other teams have signed an MOU.
No.
Just Notre Dame.
Just Notre Dame. And I think a huge piece of that and what has come out of this debate is, should Notre Dame join a conference? All of their other sports besides football, they compete in the ACC.
Right.
Their football is independent. And I think that is really the reason why they gave them that pass on being able to sign that and being able, because then if this was in the SEC and let's say, for example, Arkansas signed that, then Ole Miss would sit there and say, wait, why can't I sign that? I mean, every team would be able to sign that. So I think that's the big thing. And I think also, too, a huge point that people came out of this with was that, and I truly believe this, Notre Dame needs to join a conference. them not being in a conference this year hurt them. Because if they played in their conference game, they would have been in over Alabama because they would have been a 2-loss team that made it to their conference championship game. Win or lose, whatever it is, they would have 110% been in. But then what's come out of this whole thing, and this is like where I was even a little bit confused, was when Notre Dame's athletic director came out and had said, the ACC not rooting for us and not pushing for us to be in the playoffs, it has hurt our relationship with them. Everyone was like, wait, why would they ever sit there and try and promote you guys when your football team doesn't play in their conference? Your football team truly doesn't do anything for them. The basketball team does, the baseball team does, the lacrosse team does, but football doesn't do anything for you guys. So of course they're going to go ahead and they're going to push for Miami to be in there. And I think what's the craziest thing, and I don't know if we had talked about this, about how all of these players, like starting January 2nd, the transfer portal opens. Right now what's happening, what we're seeing is kids are notifying schools and letting them know, hey, I'm going to be entering the transfer portal. But the transfer portal does not open officially until January 2nd, when coaches can sit there and start poaching kids, basically. But in the madness of that, the college football playoff is still going to be going on because we don't know who the national championship is going to be until like January 16th.
And isn't there some talk, and some of these players will not take to the field because they're outside of their NIL contract?
Yeah. It's just, I think the biggest issue with NIL that has to be figured out is there needs to really truly be regulation on it.
Well, that's what I was going to say. This is sounding more, and I hate to sound like somebody's grandpa, but although I am, but we're essentially talking about an unregulated marketplace.
Yeah.
And up and down the line here, apparently.
Yeah.
And it's leading to this. It's leading this just as the wind blows, so changes the market.
Yeah. And it's almost like people have sat there and have said, and this is my solution to make this, to make the whole mess of college football really make sense, is it's two things that really have caused this. NIL.
Excuse me, Paige. Make it make sense.
Make it make sense.
We did it.
Is the transfer portal and NIL. Those are the two biggest things. So I had said to you earlier, well, kids should sit there and have the option. You either get the transfer portal and no NIL, or you get NIL and you have to stay at that school unless there is an academic reason as to why you have to leave.
That certainly it sounds as valid as anything else. Listen, I'm going to jump in right here because there's other parties that are very important to this conversation.
Yes.
We call them sponsors. So we're going to take a break for our sponsors, and we'll be right back. This is Alex Kienlen on Make It Make Sense, here with colleague Paige Riley, who's giving us some great insights on college football. Back in a minute. And we're back.
We're back.
We're back, and it's still Make It Make Sense. Yes. Yeah, right. Don't call it a comeback. Yeah. And this is Make It Make Sense. I'm Alex Kienlen. I'm here with reporter and college football fount of knowledge, Paige Riley. And we were just talking about it. This conversation started with the problem with the championships, and obviously we have a lot to talk about there. The championship scheduling is a mess.
Yeah.
That was the sentence that started this conversation. But with that said, we were just talking about students leaving and going to other schools and all that. And it reminded me of a term I came across called roster raids. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned that on break, and you were familiar with it. What is a roster raid? It's
basically like poaching. That's the easiest way to describe it. And it happens to every single coach, no matter what level it is. And actually, Mizzou's head coach, Eli Drinkwitz, he just came out and he goes, my entire roster is getting rated and contacted right now. And it's all because it's just so, well, nowadays also too with social media, yes, teams were watching film, yes, teams were watching each other, but it's so different now with social media, and that actually, the whole roster raid situation and poaching players has turned into an issue of spring football games. So normally what happens in the spring, and it's really truly just like a fan experience. Every school will do like a spring football game to get everybody excited for the season.
Yeah.
It's the last time that like a lot of fans can get to see the team for the spring before fall camp starts. Well, this past year, we saw all of these schools either cancel them or change it and just make it like a fanfare, like fun day instead, because it used to be like a normal scrimmage. And Texas's head coach, Steve Sarkisian, even though I know he's really not popular here in Texas, I mean, he had a really, or popular here in Arkansas, he had a really good and valid point of saying, why am I going to go ahead and play any of these spring football games if now once that second transfer window opens, Kirby Smart at Georgia could see one of my kids, call them, convince them to hop in the portal, and now everything we worked on in the spring is gone because my best running back is gone, or my best left tackle is gone, or left guard, or whatever it is. And so that really is a huge problem. I mean, there's just like this whole trickle-down effect, and a lot of people ask me, they'll be like, what do you think is worse? Do you think NIL is worse, or do you think the transfer portal is worse? I honestly think the transfer portal is worse.
Okay, I know how I would justify that, but I want to hear how you justify that.
I would have to say, I think it's like, if kids were making all this money, right? But they'd be staying at the same school for 4 years, you're still underneath the same system, and you're still developing up at the highest level. When you have the transfer portal, that's not happening anymore. And I think even talking with, when I was a student reporter, talking with a lot of NFL scouts, they had said the talent level that is coming from college is not the same as it was years ago. And they said it's because, not that the kids are horrible, but it's because they're not staying at the same place. They're not staying in the same system, developing and getting really good. Some kids can compete underneath 4 different head coaches because they could transfer to 4 different schools, which is wild.
So they're honing for that bigger market.
Yeah, for more money.
Well, here's what I was going to say is NIL, which quite obviously, and we had Courtney Mims in here a while back, and we talked about just what a madhouse that is. Yeah. But say I did good in high school and I got a college scholarship, and there's NIL attached to that, and I'm going out there and I'm playing my position every week. Mm-hmm. It's fairly obvious. The helmets and pads kind of give this part away. I could get hurt.
Yeah. I
could get so hurt that I'd never have a pro career.
Yeah.
Even if people are making pro noises about me by the time I'm in my junior year. So I might as well make some money now.
Yeah.
And just have something hopefully put back. Hopefully I wouldn't spend it on buying 22-inch wheels for my pickup truck or something. But well, I've seen it happen in other sports. So, but and I think that's what makes NIL important in the long run. But as you said though, this is such a wide open market, such an unregulated market, and now you're saying we're getting worse players coming out of these colleges,
right?
Because they're job shopping,
right? And I think also too another added element to it, and why also too, I think the bracket and everything with college football has to really change is that like revenue sharing. Back in the summertime, the House passed the revenue sharing bill, so now universities, it is a requirement for them to share what they make with those athletes. There's a budget of like $20 million, and that has to be shared across all different sports. That, Alex, we could do like a whole show on just that bill, because schools may have to start cutting smaller things like track and field, whatever, in order to sustain and keep football. But, one of the reasons why we kind of also too have to figure out this whole bracket and playoff situation is because you have a school, like a group of 5 schools that are making it in, like a James Madison, and it's no shade to them, but like they're going to get clobbered in that first round against Oregon. But it's like now too, it's like, okay, well, do we have to give those schools the opportunity? Because now in this age of revenue sharing, it's going to ruin, and it's really going to hurt these smaller athletic programs. Like, for example, UCA, when I had covered that story over the summer, I spoke to the athletic director and he said, we have decided to not opt in because we financially can't handle it. I went and I covered a UCA women's basketball game and I spoke to the coach and I had asked him about how NIL was doing, all of that stuff. And he had told me that they had to opt in because they realized they were not going to be able to survive as an athletic department. So I think also too, like the discussion of, I personally am a fan of getting rid of the group of 5 teams. Like it's wasting 2 playoff spots. I'm sorry, but it's like a James Madison is not going to be winning the whole national championship. You know, hats off to those players to be able to get themselves in that situation and stuff. And I think it's awesome and it's a historic moment, but it's like, what are we doing?
So, and by the way, for you James Madison fans, that's Make It Make Sense at nextstar.tv. I'll make sure it gets to the right people.
I can't. And it's also too, it's like if James Madison, let's for example, James Madison and Tulane were not in it, that means Vanderbilt and Texas would be in. That's $8 million more for the SEC. We would have made almost $30 million by just having teams in the bracket.
Well, and with that said, and we'll go back to this James Madison example, because James Madison's in it, clobbered or otherwise, they still not that I believe that's the case, they would still make a lot of money that they wouldn't have made otherwise. Because they're in this. Oh yeah, millions of dollars between fans wanting to buy merchandise, then also to like. If certain schools, if they host a home playoff game, I know James Madison is not hosting, but like Oregon's going to make so much money because also too, you got to think of like concession stands and ticket sales, all of that. Kids are going to spend crazy at these home football games because of, it's just for some of these schools, it's the first time they're doing it. Because normally the way the old format used to be, that everything was just like these bowl games just on the road. Last year was the first time that we saw all of these stadiums host these home football games and people just go absolutely nuts and crazy. I still think craziest environment was watching Ohio State, Tennessee last year at Columbus. That was crazy. Why so? I think it was because Ohio State, they didn't make it to the Big Ten championship. There was a discussion, okay, do we fire Ryan Day? He is awful against Michigan, our biggest rival. Like, you could go the whole season beating everybody, lose to Michigan, and then vice versa, lose to Ohio State, and your season's ruined. It's over. And so that moment, I don't know what it was about Will Howard and Ryan Day, but just something clicked. They went on one of the most dominant playoff runs I think we've ever seen. It was insane. They were blowing out teams by 20, 30 points. No kidding. Oh, yeah. And it was like good teams, too. Like Oregon, who they lost to by 1 point, they beat them in the Rose Bowl, which is like the most like prestigious bowl game to play in. They beat them by like 25 points or 20 points, whatever it was last year. What happened? I think they got pissed off that people were, doubting them. They got angry about that. And it saved Ryan Day his job. He won the national championship, so. Yeah, that'll do it, Yeah. But it's like also, too, it's like, what are we doing putting teams in? Like, we want the 12 best teams, Alex. We want the 12 best teams in all of college football. Those group of 5 teams, they're not doing it. Like they're not the same level. And it's like we almost kind of ruined it because if you sat there and you went to the group of 5 schools and said, well, we can create your own playoff bracket. You can play for your own thing. They'll be like, whatever. If they're like, that's just a diss to us because you're not thinking we're like not good enough or whatever. Like we've made it to the big leagues. Why are you taking us out of it? Type deal. But I get so angry about it. And speaking of which, we'll double back to Notre Dame for a second. We got about 3 minutes left, 4 minutes left. But Notre Dame was going to play a game with BYU, who also got frozen out. Oh, yes. And then Notre Dame, when they weren't in the playoffs, canceled. They ended their season. Yeah. So now nobody's going to make all that money that they would have made in a game with BYU.
No, and I think also, too, I think that was the wrong move. Made you look like sore losers. But then it also, too, it hurts the development of the players. Because right now what a lot of teams are doing, or what they did last week, was they took a week off, rested, recovered, whatever, and then they're back to practice. And what's so important about these bowl games is that even if you're the bowl game you're playing, it is not the playoff, you need to be able to develop those players, and
Sure.
Notre Dame is missing out on that.
I got to believe for a player just stepping out on the field knowing it's a bowl game, even
Yeah.
if you're not a starter, even if the chances of you getting off the bench are low, you're just like, there's a mental component to that.
Yeah.
When I used to race bicycles, if I went to a national race, it was just a whole different mindset going into this thing because,
Yeah.
and I'd think it would be something along those lines where, and if you're going to be a competent player, you've got to be able to work through those head games.
100%. And also, too, what you get physically, like if you win, like the rings, all
excellent
of that,
point.
you are missing out on all of that. It's just crazy.
Well, it's and you know what? There's still stuff we could talk about here because there's so much. But and of course, you go into that on your show, Paige's Point.
Yes.
Also here on KARK Fox 16 Plus, the free app for your smart TV. And Paige, is there any closing thoughts? Or did I just put you on the spot? Thanks, Alex.
No, I think that's everything. But yeah, anything that you guys want me to talk about college football wise, no matter what, or any questions you have, you can just send it to the Make It Make Sense email.
Sure.
Alex will do the plug, and then he'll send it along to me.
It happens. Pages and my desks are about as far apart as they can be in the newsroom. And yet I will still make it a point. I will still cross the desert and make sure Paige hears from you.
Yes.
And of course, I'm looking to hear from you as well. So let's make it make sense at nextstar.tv. And Paige, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you, Alex, for having me. It was so much fun.
What a well-informed discussion. And I just really appreciate it. I appreciate you bringing your expertise to this.
Yes, thank you.
And for Make It Make Sense, I'm Alex Kienlen. Talk soon.